I wouldn't do this to just anybody, but you're the one who pressed play in the third week of July on a hockey podcast, so I'm going to expect a little bit more out of you. And I'm going to ask you, between now and the little intro gets done playing, to name as many of the Penguins' current rostered left-handed defensemen as you can. Good luck. Good morning to you as well. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. All right, time's almost up. Who'd you get? You got Ryan Graves, right? That's it. You got Graves. Maybe you got the other Ryan Shea. And if you're thinking in the prospect sense, you're going to get Owen Pickering. But did you get Alexander Alexeyev? Did you get Caleb Jones? Did you get Parker Wotherspoon? Yeah, no. And the left side of this defense, and I'm not saying this as if the right side of the defense is some sort of beacon of hope either, but there are at least possibilities on that side beyond Chris Letang, and we'll see what happens to Erik Karlsson. But on the left, there's hope for Pickering, obviously, first-round pick, but after that, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? I bring this up for a reason. The Penguins, according to Spotrac.com, have just a hair over $13 million remaining in cap space for the coming season. That is the sixth most in the NHL. I'll reiterate that I don't know what's going to happen with Karlsson. I do know that he currently has a $10 million cap hit and other complications, not least of which is his age and his term and everything else. So trading him wouldn't be any snap. You'd probably have to take on as much money as you send out. What you'd be looking for, and this is usually the case in this type of exchange, is just someone who's a better fit. So let's assume that money kind of stays where it is. In the NHL, unlike in the National Football League, if you don't spend up to the cap, you have lost that money. It is gone. It is poof. In football, you can carry it over within some restrictions to the following season. In the NHL, it's just left a hole in your pocket. Whatever anyone wants to say about the Fenway Sports Group or who they'd rather have as the owner, meaning them or Mario, FSG has fulfilled its pledge to spend up to the cap every season they've owned and operated the franchise. I've yet to hear a solitary syllable to suggest that the coming season will be different. I've also yet to hear a solitary syllable as to why it should be different in this specific circumstance. There's a good reason for that. There isn't any such reason. Contrary to overwhelming misperception, the Penguins have not made any of these trades that so many seem to have expected would happen. I didn't expect them, and therefore maybe I'm having a different reaction than most, but it seems like everyone based how they would feel about the Penguins for the coming season on what would it be like without Brian Rust and Rickard Rakell and God knows who else. And from there, the misperception runs rampant. That doesn't just happen in sports, my friends. That happens in all walks of life and culture and politics and whatever else. Fact, those guys are still here. Other fact, this summer, Kyle Dubas stated out loud, publicly, for the record, that there's no part of his plan, not now, not in the near-term future, certainly not in the long-term future, for the Penguins to get worse. That got discussed an awful lot. It gave birth to a whole lot of the hockey community's usual round of just made-up trades, but it didn't actually happen. What Dubas aimed to do, and time will tell if he was right or even if he did it well, But what he has tried to do is to make the roster younger. And as much as he's tried to explain that, and others have tried to explain it, I've tried it myself, it just doesn't seem to sink in what's actually being attempted. Everyone hears, oh, they're trying to get younger. They're blowing it up. Fire sale in Pittsburgh. Never happened. Not going to happen. Shouldn't happen. Because there's no need for it to happen. There's no plus to it. Not if you're capable of creating that boomerang effect by adding youth all over the place while still keeping these other guys and keeping the team competitive and proud and holding their heads high and not sinking to these sorry depths that we've seen from other franchises who thought that the only way that you could do this was some wholesale rebuild. The other thing was never, ever, 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 ever the intent. It couldn't be with Sidney Crosby here, if you want me to really oversimplify this. Sid was never going to go along with being, Papa Bear over a bunch of kids. Sid's about one thing, if you haven't been paying attention. He's all about winning. He wants to win. He understands why the Penguins legitimately needed younger, fresher legs, and why they needed to get players of impact, at least one or two of them, in that age bracket. But this team, and this is where I swing back to the left-handed defenseman, has done a lot of that already, and there's way more to come with the 700 or so draft picks that Dubas has accumulated over the next 3 years. Most of those within the first 3 rounds. That's already occurred. Adding prospects in the current pool has already occurred. So sitting here looking at $13 million in cap space and sitting here and looking at that left-hand defense chart and understanding that you're not going to get that cap hit back ever again, make this team better. The weirdo fantasy that this has anything to do with the lottery or Gavin McKenna or any of that stuff, all you have to look at anytime you have that thought cross your mind is a picture of number 87 and ask yourself if he's going to allow that to happen. When we come back, J1Q. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Today's J1Q comes from Ryan, who says, DK, I've seen so many people clowning on Connor Clifton. Penguins need a guy on the back end who's going to lay the body instead of limply poke checking and then getting blown past on the wall. Why not give this guy a chance? Well, Ryan, it's impossible for me to respond to whatever people are clowning or whatever. I'm not looking at what you're looking at to see that. I can tell you that I do read all of the comments that are on DK Pittsburgh Sports on our own app and website. And what I've seen going back to Clifton's acquisition earlier this month is mostly positive. It's not glowing. It's not overwhelming. But then I also think that if you look at the way the right-handed defense chart goes, as I begun laying out in the opening segment, you're talking about Chris Letang, probably not. Erik Karlsson, Matthew Dumba, who, by the way, fits some of this profile. He's a nasty dude, which is very, very much welcome on the back end here. You've got Clifton, and then you've got Harrison Brunick, who's only going to be 19 years old, but I'm sorry, if he has another camp like the one he did last year, you've got to at least put thought into it. I know they don't want to, but if he forces their hand, it's a different story. So there's something over there, and Clifton can kind of fit in. He strikes me, especially if you consider the struggles that he had in Buffalo over the past couple of seasons, as a model number 7. Kind of like a Chad Ruhwedel type, but obviously way more physical, and maybe somebody who could just give you a spark if you need it as a team, if you're feeling like there's just some energy or juice missing from the process. I guess this kind of fits in with the theme of the entire episode today, because I just see that this team needs more on the back end. This team has the capability to get more on the back end. And if you think, and a lot of people seem to do, maybe they're clowning on me, that the coming season doesn't matter, I'm going to disagree with that. And I'm probably going to end up having at least 18 skaters and 2 goaltenders who would be on my side on this one. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll be back with another one of these on Monday.